Well, hello everybody. This is Jarrod Alberich, the art sale artist, here with sort of a pop-up live stream. It's been a while since I've done one of these new to me episodes, and I've been doing this thing lately where I've been watching 80s movies that I missed when I was a kid, and I've been tweeting about them, and it's generated a lot of conversations around a lot of these 80s movies that got by me when I was younger. And so I thought, I haven't done one of these new to me videos in a long time. So I picked one that I've done recently, which is Dragonslayer from, I believe, 1981. And I just thought I would do a sort of a quick overall film review on that. And then I would get into the tweets. Like, I want to answer the tweets. I had a lot of people commenting on those as well. So let's just jump right into the review portion of things. So 1981 Dragonslayer, it stars Peter MacNicol, which I thought was weird because like I only really know him from like Ghostbusters 2 and I think he was on Ally McBeal, but I didn't really watch that. But to me, sort of looks like this goofy, lovable, kind of small guy. And here he's playing some sort of a fantasy hero, a wizard in training, if you will. So I just thought that was odd, but it, I had to put myself in the right frame of mind to say, hey, this was people probably experiencing Peter MacNicol for the first time, and then he sort of grew into the actor he became, as opposed to me like going back in time and seeing it for the first time. So speaking of the whole going back in time and not seeing this movie in the 80s, the biggest question I get over and over again, to the point where I've started to like address the question in the original tweet, was how could you have not have seen this? How did you miss this in the 80s? And my only answer to that is I lived in Germany. We moved to Germany in 1987, and I know this year Dragonslayer came out in 1981, but you got to remember VHS didn't really become prolific until I think we got our very first VCR in 1986. And so that was right before we went to Germany. And before that, we kind of grew up poor. We didn't have cable TV. We dang sure didn't have HBO. We were whatever you could get off of the antenna. So pretty much, people are always like, this was on TBS all the time in the 80s, or this was all running on HBO 6 or 7 times a day. I didn't have TBS. I didn't have HBO. So it was pretty much find the videotape. Then we moved to Germany in 87, and 90, and finding the videotapes there was a challenge. We lived in a small town at a small base, so our video rental selections were very limited. You kind of had to know somebody to get a movie back then. All right, so with that history, I never did see Dragonslayer 1981. So let's start with just talking about the poster here. Okay, this poster is freaking dope. It's really cool. It's a pretty cool painting of this big swooping dragon and the fire and the girl tied to the stake. And I appreciate a poster that really well represents a movie. So I feel like the movie is well represented here. And that is a good thing. And I think it's artistically really cool. I like the way it even has, it sort of goes into that block white at the bottom for the font, which the font is cool. The lettering's cool. It's just a really great poster. So, I'd known of this movie. I didn't know Peter MacNicol was in it, but I finally watched it. I finally watched it just this past week. So let's get into the thoughts. All right. First, the big thought overall is I think it held up really well. I think it's, especially in the special effects department, like you go back to the 80s and, you get 80s special effects. And this is 80s special effects, but this is high end 80s special effects. All right, it's I can't think of a lot of movies, other than maybe like Star Wars and that level of budget and ingenuity. But I think it was Industrial Light and Magic that did this movie as well. So yeah, the special effects were really good. I really liked the dragon, both the practicals they used, the big practicals they use for up close of the claws and the head and all that. That meshed really well with their distance shots, and there's, I think, stop motion. I don't know. All the blending of it made it really, really good. So it definitely held up in the special effects department. Story-wise, it held up pretty well too, because it had some things in it that I hadn't seen before. and it's pretty darn creative for 1981. The biggest things that stand out to me, the biggest minus would be, you know, early on there's the young boy, and I was like, that's totally a girl. And the big surprise reveal later on is that it was a girl. All right, so that was a little cliche, but the one that got me the most was when and this is full spoilers if you haven't figured that already, was when the princess, when she put her name into the lottery, and like I think she put her name in the lottery, so she made sure that she got selected. I really thought that meant, well, the young wizard, Peter McNichol's character, is going to save her, right? Should be the first one that gets saved by the dragon. Spoiler alert, no. No, she dies a creepy, terrible death with the dragon's babies are eating her, and it doesn't necessarily shy away from that. Wow, that was shocking. It had a few other story beats that were just not typical, which I thought was really good. It kept you on your toes, because you're kind of like, oh my goodness, this is not the super formulaic movie that I might have thought it would be for an 80s fantasy film. So definitely gets good story beats. Like I said, there's a couple of predictable things, but there was enough unpredictable things that it was not boring. Special effects were good. All the performances were good. So overall, I thought Dragonslayer 1981, man, I thought it really, really held up well. I want to say hey to Trey Black, who just entered in the comments. Good to see you, buddy. he's making a joke about, I think he's making a joke about how the movie kind of tricked you. It definitely tricked me, Trey. Thanks for stopping by, bud, for this no announcement, just live stream, just Jarrod rambling on about Dragonslayer 1981, because I finally saw it. So let's get to the point of the show. So that's my overall was like, yeah, definitely thumbs up. If I was to give it a score out of 10, I would probably say it was an easy 7. And I would probably bump it up to an 8 because of how well the effects held up and the unpredictability of the story. So I would probably give Dragonslayer an 8 out of 10. And now I will go to the tweets, because it generated a lot of discussion on my Twitter. And I kind of want to just kind of go through them and read them and answer them. And that's how we're going to do it. That's going to be what we're going to do. So let's do that. All right. So this guy said, was thinking of rewatching this one. Wonder if it's still good. Well, I'm here to tell you, yes, it is still good. I'd never seen it before, so I don't even have the nostalgia goggles to go back and watch it. I mean, I just watched it last week for the first time, and it was incredibly good. So I'm thinking, yes, it's going to hold up for you, for the guy who tweeted that. This guy said the practical effects hold up well. Again, they hold up really well. I thought it looked great. Another guy said, can I suggest Krull? Now, Krull is a movie that I have seen. It did not get past me in the 80s. In fact, I saw it in the theater with my brother, the Weasel Skull. So I don't need to see Krull. I've seen that a bunch of times, and I like it. I like it a lot. This guy says, is this one of those try that again. It is one of those underappreciated films that I enjoyed greatly as a wee kid and still do as an adult. Can't argue with that. This commenter said, best dragon ever. He may be right. I mean, I like the Dragon and Dragonheart, but that's probably more to do with Sean Connery's, performance than it is the actual look of the dragon, because I think the Dragonheart one was CGI with maybe a little practical. I am hard pressed to think of a better dragon in a film than in Dragonslayer. So, yeah, I may have to agree with that guy. That was one impressive dragon. The guy said, great movie. I really like Dragonslayer. Let's see. This guy said, oh, this is someone who lived a life like me. I grew up with only basic cable, which was fine. Well, I didn't have cable growing up. That's one of the reasons I missed this movie in the 80s. We lived in Germany from 82 to 88. Again, I lived there from 87 to 90. Yep, it could be hard to find some movies in the NTSC format. For those of you who don't know, here in the United States and Canada, especially, we use NTSC format. In Europe, they use PAL, PAL format, and they're not terribly compatible. So, yeah, we basically saying it was hard to find American formatted movies. He said he got some through mail order. He said in our city, there was a German video store that rented American tapes, which provided me my first watch of Blade Runner. Well, we didn't really, there was a small video rental on base where I lived. And I rented a few things there, but like I said, it was small. And you can imagine at the time, there's no streaming or anything like that. You have to go get a VHS tape. So you can imagine how like competitive that was to, find the movie you want, because there's like hundreds of people living on base and only a couple of copies of each tape. So it was tough. All right, back to the Twitter tweets. An absolute classic. Couldn't agree more. This one guy's been following me on my journey through these 80s movies I missed. He said, the more movies I see that you hadn't seen breaks my heart, and more and more painfully. This one is a masterpiece. And I responded. I said, I don't share all the movies I've seen, which is a lot. It's more than you think, because I watch a lot of obscure stuff. I used to work at the movie theater, so I've seen a lot of movies. But yeah, there's this little slim window in the 80s that I guess, could break the heart of someone who loves 80s movies. And I get it, because there's more of these to come. I've recently watched Ice Pirates and Cloak and Dagger and Sword and the Sorcerer. So there's a lot more of these to come. So, but don't feel sad for me. I've seen a lot of movies. One guy straight up just asked me, he said, "Ooh, it's been a while. How's it look to fresh eyes?" And like I said earlier, it looks great. The effects really hold up. They are 80s effects in the best possible way. I would put it in league with something as good as Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, that kind of thing. But again, I'm pretty sure I remember seeing in the credits it was Industrial Light and Magic, so that would make sense. It really, really held up. Let's see. My buddy Gene Hendricks mentioned on Twitter, I watched it not too long ago and was happy with how well special effects held up. There's the theme. It's just still looks really good. It sounds good. Really, really just a fun film to watch. My friend Chris, who's done a few of these videos with me, has asked me if I was going to do anything with it, like a live stream or a podcast. Well, he kind of pushed me over the edge, because I was already thinking about doing all these pop-up live streams just to record it and get it on YouTube and maybe generate some chat here. And so that's what we're doing. I got another guy said, I just got that the other day and I haven't watched it yet, though. And I learned in these Twitter comments, I think like a 4K of it has come out very recently. So I think a lot of people are buying. That's the impression I got from the tweets, that a 4K came out recently, or maybe a Blu-ray or something like that. All right, moving on my Twitter comments. It says, okay, this is a good one. The dragon looks threatening. It didn't do well financially, and I think that helped reduce trying to make a Dungeons and Dragons kind of movie at the time, despite D&D being so popular. And that's an interesting comment, because yes, D&D was at like height of popularity from late 70s, especially into the early mid 80s, all the way through D&D is still popular, but the height of its popularity was definitely at this point. And it's a shame that Dragonslayer didn't do better in the box office, although there's still a lot of good fantasy movies, as we'll talk about. Beastmaster is another one that I just watched. We'll get to those. I promise you. All right, back to the Twitter comments. This is a really good one. A really good one. Very underrated. One of the best fantasy movies of the 80s, and I will not argue with that. Classic, makes me want to watch it again, too. Well, go ahead and watch it, man. I encourage anybody to go out there and watch that. Heck yeah. Let's see. Moving on, another comment. This was actually a really good movie that I enjoyed. I've seen it several times. I think this is one of the last roles for Sir Ralph Richardson. And memory serves me correct, he played the senior wizard who died, wink, at the beginning. A little spoiler there for you. And yeah, he was really good. I didn't realize this was one of his last roles. Another comment. I love that movie, but I haven't met many others who have seen it to discuss it with. Well, Tim, you can always discuss it with me here on the live stream. Another comment. When the king took credit at the end, the two main characters were probably like, you've got to be kidding. That was like hilarious and sad at the very same time, and like tragic, because they put all this effort into slaying this dang dragon, and the king just like at the end, spoiler alert, just sort of walks up and just like puts his sword into the already dead body. He's like, I killed the dragon. Everybody's like, hooray for the king. That's another one of those story beats that I didn't see coming, that I talked about earlier. Those little story beats, those unpredictable story beats, really set this apart for me. Because going into this 81 thing, I thought, oh, it's going to be sort of that really sort of formulaic fantasy movie of the 80s. And it surprised me, and it necessarily was not one of those. Let's see. We got more comments. This is a good one. Longtime favorite. Great movie, Dragon. My buddy Tony said Dragonslayer and Young Sherlock Holmes were some of the staples with my friends. We also leaned heavy on The Last Starfighter and Tron. So those are some great 80s movies. None of those got by me, with the exception of Dragonslayer, which I fixed this week. But I've definitely seen the heck out of Young Sherlock Holmes, Last Starfighter, and Tron. In fact, Last Starfighter was one of those movies I've seen like a bazillion times, because right before we went to Germany in '86, like I said, we got our first VCR, and Showtime ran this special, like get Showtime free for 90 days or something like that. So my dad got the free Showtime special and just recorded a bunch of movies because he knew we were going to Germany. So he's just recording movies off of Showtime and basically took the free sampler just to record them so we'd have things to watch when we got there. And one of those was Last Starfighter. I watched it over and over and over again. This guy gives a shout out to the Docking Bay 77 podcast. He said, or gal, actually, it was a female. She said, check out the awesome Docking Bay 77 podcast episode about this movie. I don't know anything about that, but certainly check out the Docking Bay 77 podcast. My friend Rob said, that's what I thought. He said, I just took delivery of the shiny new 4K Blu-ray yesterday. I read the Marvel adaptation many times as a kid, but have never seen the movie. So he's probably going to press play on that later. So he's with me on that. I got by him in the 80s because Rob and I are of the same age. And apparently he just picked up, like I said, a new 4K of it. So go find that 4K, folks, if you want to check that out. He also mentions the Marvel comic adaptation, which came in a magazine size, which I'm pretty sure I own, but I guess I've never read because it did not ring a bell. I need to go look into that. This commenter said, you have a lot of catching up to do. I recommend at least 5 watches of this film so you can catch the majority of the little things that make it great besides the dragon. We've mentioned the dragon 1,000 times already on this live stream. But he's right. I already mentioned these little things, the king taking credit, the return of the main wizard from the beginning, the horrible fate of the princess. Like, these are all little things I just didn't see coming that kind of take this movie to another level, make it not be predictable. I want to say hey to Tony Pennington, who just popped up in the chat to say hello. Tony, I just read your comment a few seconds ago or minutes ago in the chat, and I can put this one up on the screen. Tony said, I wasn't a big fan of Peter McNichol. I felt he wasn't confident enough, but I really liked the movie. I mentioned earlier how Peter McNichol was an odd choice for that role. But I guess he was very young, so that made sense. Him not being confident enough, that's an interesting point you bring up, Tony, because on one hand, I felt he was overly confident because he was basically like, well, the main wizard's dead. I'm going to handle the business now. And in that regard, his confidence felt pretty good. But, his inexperience led to him being a weaker hero. And I think that's what you're driving at, buddy. And yeah, I'd agree with you. He wasn't that dragon slayer you think of with the broadsword and the shield and all that, although he does gain some pretty cool weapons later on. But I think you know what I'm saying. Like he was much more meek and much more of a wizard than a big broadsword carrying Conan style adventurer. So I read you on that, my friend. All right, a couple more from the Twitter comments, and I'm about done here. The scene where the woman was getting out of the shackles scared me as a kid. Oh, that was cool because that was earlier in the movie where they showed the first girl like is trying to escape the dragon because they sacrifice these young ladies to the dragon, and watching her try to get away in a panic. Yeah, I could definitely see that would be very, very scary as a kid. I mean, it was tense as an adult. I mean, we all kind of knew when you watch as an adult, if it shows up early in the movie, they're pretty much she's not going to make it because they're showing this is kind of how it works, and it didn't work for her. But yeah, definitely was scary. My friend Elvis said he liked it as an adult. Try that again. He liked it, period. As an adult, you may see the ending coming, but as a kid, it surprised me. I may be the most childlike adult available, Elvis, but I didn't see it coming. So it definitely had its creativity. I did not, if you're referring to sort of like the wizard coming back, didn't see that coming. The not rescue of the princess, didn't see that coming. The King taking credit for the dragon slaying. Didn't see that coming. So yeah, it got me good. It got me good, buddy. Tony Penton mentions in the chat, Dragonslayer versus Lady Hawk. Now, Lady Hawk I have seen, but it's been a while. My memory of it's very, very foggy. All I remember is Michelle Pfeiffer, Matthew Broderick, and I want to say Rutger Hauer, but how it all plays out, I need to do a rewatch on Lady Hawk. A couple more comments. Tim said, good movie. Then he said the newly released 4K question mark. I believe he's asking me, is that how I watch it? No, I had a DVD rip of it. I watched it off of a DVD rip. This whole new 4K thing. If you're into Dragonslayer, apparently that's available. And then my buddy Chris said it's a fantastic movie. It still holds up. And whoops, I hit the, there we go. I hit something I shouldn't hit. And that's correct. And my friend Kathy said, your choice has been right up my alley this week. I love 80s fantasy films, and this was a favorite of mine. Like I said, in the past week, I watched this one. I watched Sword and the Sorcerer, which is more of a rewatch. I watched it when I was a kid, but I didn't remember anything, so it was kind of like a first watch. I watched Beastmaster, which I'd never seen before. What else? Robot Jocks, Ice Pirates. So anyway, these are all things I'll probably be doing live streams on a little later on, just to address the comments. That's it for the comments in the chat, by the way. And actually it says show more replies, which means probably somebody used bad language or something. No, I don't know why I hid this one, but this guy said, one of my top favorite movies of all time. I watch it every couple of months. I have the vinyl model of the Vermithrax Pejorative. Several books, a soundtrack. It's a perfect fantasy movie, in my opinion. All right, so I'm not as on board as that guy. I mean, I love it, but this guy's like a super fan, and that's cool. I could definitely see people wanting to be super fans of this movie. It's really, really good. In the chat, I got Trey Black mentioning, now I want to do an 80s fantasy movie night. I have done an 80s fantasy movie week. I've watched at least one a day for the last week, and I hope to come back and do some more of these, just to kind of capture my thoughts, chat with you guys. I really like going through all the tweets and sort of being able to respond to that, even though I know I'm not responding to them live, but it kind of, gives me something to chat about. So that's it. I think I've caught up on all the tweets, all the replies. It ended up being a movie people wanted to talk about on Twitter, so I decided I wanted to talk about it here. I did reach out to my friend Black Belt Chris, and I gave him like a whopping 30 minutes to decide whether or not he wanted to join me on this discussion. And I just heard from him. He said, unfortunately, he's not set up to do any live streaming, so he won't be able to join me. So I can just wind this one down then. I appreciate everybody who stopped by. I see some people already gave me the like on this, and I really appreciate that. However you're watching it, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a like, that would be great. Of course, I'm Jarrod Alberich, the yard sale artist, as it says right. I'm going to get it over there. It is. There's my Twitter at yard sale artist. If you want to come look at some of these movies I've been watching, check out my art, all that stuff. It's all at yard sale artist, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all yard sale artist. Of course, I'm here representing the Longbox Crusade podcast network and the Longbox Crusade channel on YouTube. So if you're looking for nerdy podcasts to listen to with guys that have a lot of fun and have a lot of positivity to talk about, and then check out Longbox Crusade, whether it's here on YouTube or on any one of the podcatchers. Again, we're podcasting all the time. I guess that is about it. Thanks for tuning in to this new to me. I really enjoyed Dragonslayer. Again, in summary, its effects hold up really well. Its story is just unique enough to make sure you're not bored and you stay with it the whole way. It was really fun. It's got a badass poster. It's just a good movie all around. I really enjoyed Dragonslayer. So again, I think I gave it about an 8 out of 10. Maybe I should do like rankings of like how sad I am that I didn't watch it in the 80s, that it got by me as a kid. I'd be pretty sad on this one. And it makes me wonder, and I don't know, so maybe somebody out there can tell me. Hit me up at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, because I haven't Googled it or looked into it. I wonder if they ever did a toy line for these. It really feels like it would lend itself to a toy line. So I don't know if they did or not. Who knows? Somebody does. I could Google it, but I didn't do it before the show. So again, in summary, great movie. Sorry I missed it in the 80s. Really glad I caught up on it. I thought it was fantastic. And that's going to be it for me. Jarrod Alberich, the Yard Sale Artist, Longbox Crusade. I'm an Act Froze. Thanks everybody who stopped by and gave the old thumbs up to the video. I really appreciate it. I'll catch you guys later. I'm acting like I'm frozen. As I find, there it is.